All right, guys, welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today got a very special guest, one of our amazing clients. Her name is Chantelle Contorines. She has a business called the Divorce Hub, and she's joining us today to talk a little bit about her program, who she is, how she helps people, and then also just about some of the results she's been able to get inside of our program. But
tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Can you give our audience kind of a brief description of who you are and, kind of like what you do?
So I'm the person, I'm a divorce coach, and my specialty is high conflict, and I'm the person people should be connecting with before they leave and definitely before they hire their lawyer. And I work with men and women, mostly men, and I help them shift their perspective and gain absolute clarity so that they can extricate themselves from their relationship strategically, which saves them time and money.
Awesome. And, how did you fall into this, or how did you kind of come up with doing this? Like what happened in your life to where you kind of got to this point where you wanted to lead others in doing, something that maybe you didn't have access to?
Exactly that. I didn't have access to a divorce coach during the beginning of my divorce, and it cost me a fortune, and it cost me a couple of years of my life. And my divorce coach changed my trajectory, and I decided that was what I needed to do to help other people.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about kind of like what was life like before, you got divorced, and then kind of like fast forwarded to why you're so passionate about helping people now today?
Oh gosh, I was so unhappily married. I was partnered for 25 years. And I was 39 years old when I decided to take the plunge. And I was crying myself to bed every night. I had gained weight. I was losing hair. I was aging so rapidly. I wasn't sleeping. I had lost all self-esteem and confidence. I no longer had passions. I was the bottom rung of anybody. I took care of everybody but myself. Fast forward to after my divorce. I run marathons. I run triathlons. I have lost all my cortisol and stress weight. My hair is fuller. I have passion again. I know exactly who I am. I'm more confident now at 44 than I was at 24. And my goal is to help people empower themselves through this process.
Okay. And, let's say this, like, number one, like, I think the big thing for you is talking to you is like, you don't believe in divorce as far as like the first thing. Right. And so
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times when people talk, even, when you first came into our program, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm helping, people get divorced by helping Chantelle, like, do all this stuff. And then I started talking to you about like what you really do. And, you were like, hey, that's not the first thing that we do recommend, but like, where's the point where it's kind of like unrepairable? For you, like, what was the point for you? And then how do you know it is for somebody else, or how would somebody know that?
I think for me, I had tried everything to make my marriage work. But like anything, it takes two people to make a marriage work. And I was the only one doing the work to change stuff. I was changing myself to no avail. And when people start to think about divorce, it's almost too late by that point. If you're starting to Google divorce and look at what toxic relationships look like, you're probably already at the edge. You just simply need to take action to get out. I always recommend therapy. If you have two healthy people in a relationship, you should always try to make it work, especially if you have children involved. When you have one healthy person and one unhealthy person, there's simply no making that relationship work. And the longer you stay, the worse off it gets, and the actual sicker you'll become, because chronic stress causes chronic illness.
So the big thing for you is, a lot of this, relationship you had turned into, stress, which turned into sickness, and then obviously you said, you had health symptoms like your hair falling out, things like that. Like somebody's listening to this and they're like, hey, I think I'm about there. What are like the key signs that they would need to reach out to someone like you, or just simply be like, hey, there is someone that actually can help you? Because I think a lot of times when people are in this situation, is they feel alone and they don't feel like they have anywhere to turn or anybody to talk to. So they don't have that support.
Yeah. And I think that's when you're unhappily married, you feel inconsequential. You feel really unsupported and invalidated. And it makes you feel really alone. And my work is to ensure that people never feel alone. And divorce is one of the most stressful instances in life, second to losing a loved one. And so when a person is at that place where they've tried everything, they're still exhausted. Like they're literally emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually exhausted, and they're running on fumes and they've lost their passion. That is the time for them to start making a plan and taking action to leave. And they should always be very strategic in their leaving. It shouldn't just be, unless safety is an issue, it shouldn't just be something that you decide overnight. How you extricate yourself, how you leave, can really shape the entire process, how long it takes you, how successful you are through it. And you should always rely on expert support. That's my number one thing. And so many people make mistakes because they don't know how to divorce and they do it all wrong. That's where I come in. I help them do it right.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think of like, if you were going to sell your business or close your business, you would typically seek out expert advice. Well, this is a much bigger thing than, obviously it's 10 times bigger, but, my guess is a lot of people don't look at it that way and they just start going through it. And all of a sudden, they're so far in, they have nowhere to go and they've already, spent a lot of money. So like at what point did you go through your divorce to where you are today? Like what point was like, hey, I actually want to help people do this same thing?
I was a year after my divorce. I hired my divorce coach. And about 3 months into working with him, I said, this is what I want to do. And so he actually mentored me in conjunction with me taking tons of courses and programs so that I could actually become certified. I just realized that that's what I needed to do. He was so pivotal in my shift in my perspective and the trajectory of my divorce that I knew that this is what I needed to do to support people just like me through the process, to make it easier for them.
Okay, so how long have you been, doing the coaching you're doing now?
Informally, about 3 years. I've been coaching friends and family. Formally, a year and a half.
Okay. And what's been kind of the most difficult part for you in, this journey?
So having clients come to me has been the hardest part. People have been following me. They really enjoy my information. Once they hire me, they do see absolute results. It's been getting people to pick up the phone to connect with me. That was the hardest part.
And what do you think, what do you think makes that the hardest part with what you're doing?
I absolutely know what it is. I'm a helper, and I really, really thrive off of helping people. I was not very good at selling myself and getting people to see what I was doing so that it was something that they had to do. It wasn't just like an option. That's why I hired you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're kind of getting to that. So, the biggest thing you struggle with, obviously, is, I think the hardest part with what you do is you can't really stand up on the street corner and be like, hey, if you're looking to get a divorce, come see me, right? I know initially when you came in, it's like, hey, I have this amazing program. At the time, you were kind of doing more one-on-one individual sessions. And then, really the first thing that we talked about was like, hey, you got to make this, more scalable. And you really have to commit people to a certain length of time. Otherwise, they're just not going to be super committed. But can you talk a little bit about just the shift in that mindset from going to kind of the one-on-one, per appointment model to kind of like where you are now?
It was, I think, less than a week in the program, I had like my eureka moment. I was like, I'm going about this all wrong. I'm getting people at all different points in their divorce journey, oftentimes at the wrong time. And yes, I'm effective, but I need to create a program that gets them before they even leave and works them through the after. And within 2 weeks, I created a program from scratch using what I've been doing for a year and a half, but really putting it together so it's very polished. And I launched my program, I think, 3 weeks after I joined. And it's been super successful since. So, and that's a huge part of just being in the program.
Yeah. So what do you think, caused you to have that eureka moment?
It was a perspective shift for me. It was thinking outside of the box. It was thinking bigger picture than what I'd been doing. I'd been playing small. And yes, that was effective and it was helping people, but I realized I needed to play bigger and able to help people exactly where they needed to be helped before they created massive mistakes and issues that then cost them more time and money. So it was really like my own mindset. And then just seeing like what other people were doing, I was like, oh, a program actually just makes so much more sense.
Right. And what's cool is, I think when we first talked, you were taking people kind of at the end of the cycle after they'd already gotten divorced. And, we talked, hey, your goal is actually catch them prior to that to save them from a lot of the things that you went through. And so as we begin to reverse engineer that, we're like, hey, your ideal clients actually, these are the clients you're working with, but your actual ideal client is actually back here. So just changing that perspective. And then it was like, okay, now you need to reverse engineer how you're going to help them through that process, which, you created your new offer, your new program. And then kind of the next piece is we got into the marketing. So you had, you have a very good following on Instagram, but the problem is you just weren't getting people onto, calls and things like that. So what's been your perspective in marketing since, you've been in our program for a few months?
Well, I actually realized through a lot of coaching with you and in the groups, because sales was not something that I felt comfortable with. And I was really adamant about that. And you kept going in on me saying, you have to shift that, Chantelle. And I realized I was actually doing people a disservice by not changing my messaging so that they understood the value of what I had to offer. Because what I do is I actually save people, and I'm not trying to be like egotistical, but I save people a minimum of 6 months, and sometimes $100,000 plus. Divorce with a high conflict person is incredibly expensive and time consuming. So your coaching of having me shift my perspective then allowed me to see that I wasn't a used car salesman. I was actually selling something of value, and I needed to change my messaging to get people to understand that they needed to take action, and that by doing so, that they then empower themselves. So you empowered me, which then empowered them.
Awesome. And what's been cool is to watch. I know initially we're kind of talking about marketing, but what's really been cool for me to watch you is the area I've probably seen you grow the most is in sales. We don't specifically really teach sales. However, we do teach you how to communicate better. And in turn, that helps you better at sales because you're clear on your offer. You're clear on how you can help people, and you're clear on who your ideal client is. And when you're clear on those three things, sales kind of like begins to take care of itself a lot better because people are getting converted through your content. They're getting converted through, you just showing up. And so that's, what really made you better at sales, but also having that confidence, to really be able to help someone and say, listen, I know the journey, I've been through it, and I can lead you through the same thing. And then we came up with having a tangible ROI, which is, hey, here's actually the tangible result I'm going to save you from or help you save So having that gives you the confidence and ability that it's like, hey, it's going to actually cost you more by keep doing what you're doing and going through it on your own versus, letting someone else help guide you through that. So like when you show up on a sales call now, it's not about being a car salesman. It's now about like, hey, let me show you the value and how I can help you.
Yeah, and that was the big shift because remember I was really stuck in the whole used cars salesman thing. And it took me practice. I had to practice, right? I came to every coaching call and then I practiced behind the scenes so that it became something that just was as easy. I was able to actually close my first paid in full before I even launched my program. And then my second one was shortly thereafter.
And, when we talk about paid in full, we're talking about, thousands of dollars. Well, we can talk Canadian. That sounds better, but,
Because it's so much more.
but you went from literally charging, how much per session?
I was charging $170 Canadian, which is probably about 120 American per session.
Okay. And then you went to charging what for, your whole program?
My program is 4,200 US.
And that's what, almost $6,000 Canadian?
Yep.
So from 170 to almost $6,000 difference. And not only that, you knew, and we talked about this, like, hey, is this really going to help them? You sitting down with them, meeting them one session, and then them deciding when they're going to come in again versus you committing them to like, hey, we need to work together for this amount of time. So it was like the thing you were selling, you weren't even in alignment with, right? And now you're in complete alignment with it because it's basically what you had inside of you that's now like, hey, here's what you need. What's been the shift for you? Because like I'm guessing it's easier for you to sell now that program than it was that individual session.
Yeah, and it is because I'm able to actually help people avoid the mistakes and the pitfalls. And truly, the work that we do is re-empowering them because that's been taken from them through their entire relationship. And so I empower them to make good choices for themselves, to trust themselves again. So for me, it's tremendously encouraging to watch people like grow, like right in front of me, and equip themselves with all the knowledge and the tools to be able to make good choices based on knowledge and not from fear, and get themselves out and start to create a life that they actually love.
That's awesome. So, now, let's talk about what has been kind of the tangible ROI for you in our program versus maybe what you were doing before, and then we'll kind of get into the next thing.
Okay. So prior to coming in, I was maybe making about $2,000 a month. And within a month of the program, I made $25,500 US.
That's amazing. So, and then, what has that done for you? Like, I don't even know if you knew that was possible, like coming in, or was like, is this guy really going to be able to help me do this? I know you came in because your sister, but
I was cautiously optimistic. I'm an optimist by heart, but I was cautious. I was like, I don't know. We'll see. And I did the work. So it's there for anybody, truly, who wants to do the work. And I dove right in. So I showed up at every call. I asked lots of questions. I put my hand up. I asked the stupid questions that nobody wants to ask. And here I am, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is this kind of like empowered you to do going forward, knowing, you have a system, knowing the results you can get? Like, what does this do for your confidence going forward?
The sky's the limit. This is just the start. So the program is the first piece. And then from this, I want to create like a masterclass so I can make passive income while I'm sleeping. And this allows my children and I to have a much better life.
Nice. That's awesome. Just don't forget me when you get too big. Don't forget about me.
When I'm on Oprah.
That's right. So, well, hey, let me say this, like, what's been maybe the most unexpected result you've gotten in our program?
I thought I was a confident person going into the program and a positive, optimistic person, but my confidence has grown tremendously and my positivity has shifted. My perspective is what shifted, and I stopped saying stupid stuff to myself out loud. And I really learned to embrace the suck. I sucked at sales to begin with. But I even changed how I was talking about that, so that I was no longer putting out there what I didn't want to hear or get back. So.
Yeah, I think that was like lesson one, right? I was like, hey, you just got to quit saying stupid shit out loud. You're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you say you suck at sales. So like, you're just reinforcing the thing you don't want. So
yeah. And it actually started before that when I said that I did not know how to be succinct. I only knew how to do long form. And you're like, well, stop saying that. And I was like, what do you mean stop saying that? It's the truth. And so there began the relationship.
That's awesome. I think one of my favorite things to, see you do is like you really do take action. It's like when we have a conversation, you take action right away. You ask questions, even if you might feel dumb. But like what I've seen you do from that is like you've grown tremendously in a short amount of time. Like, let's face it, when you came in, I wasn't sure if you could actually close a sale within 3 weeks. Like you're getting your first paid in full, and all of a sudden, like you just have this confidence about you. When you're even showing up on our calls to where it's like, hey, I can close anybody because I believe in what I'm actually selling, and that's been really cool to see. And then just to hear, hey, like I stopped saying stupid shit out loud, and I started actually saying what I wanted versus the thing I didn't want. Which, a lot of people, when they listen to something like this, I think we can all relate to it because, we kind of get more of what we put out, and sometimes that's not good, right? And so just by you reframing some of the things you say, like that's been huge for you. And it's been cool to watch. Yes, it's cool to watch your results as far as like 25K, but like I really see the results of like, hey, I closed another person, or I stopped doing this thing, and that's been really powerful to watch. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you this: like, what is the community aspect meant for you? Because a lot of times people look at the ROI, they look at like those results, but like, what's been the community aspect for you?
Well, to backtrack a little bit, community is everything to me. I love community in my daily life, in my personal life. And I've been lacking that in my business life, being that I work independently from home. So this community has actually been really encouraging. Like today I said, please help me with my post, and people help me with my post. And I ask questions and people respond. And people were receptive to practicing with me so that we could actually practice our skills before we actually went out into the big bad world and tried them on real people. So the community has been amazing.
That's amazing. So any last words, say somebody's on the fence, whether or not they should be joining our program, like any last words of advice for them?
Take the leap. Take action. If what you're doing is not working, try something new. And this is probably the thing that's going to unlock it for you. If I can do this as a high conflict divorce coach, anybody else in any other field can do this.
Awesome. Well, hey, if somebody maybe is in a position where they don't know where to turn, they're super stressed out, they just don't know, who to talk to, like how would someone, that's in that conflict, like how would they get in touch with you?
They could always follow me on Facebook, Chantelle Contorines, or on Instagram at the divorce hub _ divorce _ hub, or email me, Chantelle@thedivorcehub.ca.
And if you guys are listening to this podcast, you can just simply go to the show notes. There'll be a direct link to Facebook, Instagram, or website. So you guys can reach out to Chantelle, set up a call, and, if she can help, she can definitely help you if you're in that situation. So we've seen firsthand that she has a gift when it comes to that. So I want to thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate you and just being in the program and just the work that you've done, and super excited to see what's next.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all your guidance and coaching. In 2 months,
thank you.
I'm completely changed.
Let's go. We got to double it now.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.